Introduction. The foundations of a new world imagine waking up in a bustling colonial port, the salty Atlantic breeze carrying echoes of opportunity and danger. Merchants haggle on the wharf, enslaved Africans toil in the fields, and farmers survey their sprawling lands. This is life in the 13 British colonies, a patchwork of societies that would shape the future United States. But what truly made these colonies tick? Let's take a vivid journey through their economy and society, uncovering the stories, struggles, and ambitions that defined a continent. Ready to step into the cobblestone streets and rolling plantations of colonial America? Let's begin. The New England colonies, built on rock, faith, and commerce. Nestled in the chilly Northeast, the New England colonies, Massachusetts, Connecticut, Rhode Island, and New Hampshire, were founded by religious dissenters seeking a better life. Their rocky soil was tough for large-scale farming, but these colonists were nothing if not resourceful. They turned to the forests and the sea, building an economy on shipbuilding, fishing, whaling, and trade. Towns like Boston bustled with markets and workshops, exporting lumber and salted fish as far as the Caribbean. Can you picture the creak of wooden ships and the roar of Atlantic waves as New Englanders carved their destiny? Society in New England. Tight-knit and pious society in New England revolved around small towns and strict religious values. Puritan communities enforced moral discipline, and town meetings gave men a say in local affairs. A taste of democracy in the making. Education mattered deeply. After all, people needed to read the Bible. The first public schools and colleges, like Harvard, founded 1636, sprang up here. What would it feel like to live in a town where everyone knows your business and your sins? The Middle Colonies, diversity and prosperity. Traveling south, the Middle Colonies, New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and Delaware, offered a landscape both fertile and free. Here, rich soil and gentle rivers made wheat, corn, and livestock the backbone of the economy. Cities like Philadelphia and New York became vibrant centers of trade, bustling with merchants from all over Europe. Even more striking was the diversity. Dutch, Swedes, Germans, English, and Scots-Irish mingled, trading languages, religions, and customs. Religious tolerance attracted Quakers, Mennonites, Jews, and Catholics, setting the stage for a uniquely pluralistic society. Imagine walking through a crowded Philadelphia market, hearing a dozen languages, and seeing a rainbow of traditions. How would you find your place? Social mobility and opportunity. The Middle Colonies' openness extended to social structure. While wealthy merchants and landowners held power, many ordinary colonists could work their way up, buying land, opening shops, or joining the bustling trades. Apprenticeships trained young people for skilled professions, while the relative equality fostered a spirit of independence. Would you strike out on your own or follow in your family's footsteps in this land of opportunity? The Southern Colonies, plantations and inequality. Further south, in Maryland, Virginia, the Carolinas, and Georgia, the climate and soil favored cash crops, especially tobacco, rice, and indigo. Wealthy planters built sprawling estates along rivers, exporting their goods across the Atlantic. But this prosperity came at a terrible cost. The Southern economy relied heavily on the labor of enslaved Africans, whose forced toil built fortunes for a privileged few. Small farmers, known as yeomen, scraped by on modest plots, while the gap between rich and poor loomed large. The plantation economy created a rigid social hierarchy, one that would shape the region for centuries. Can you feel the contrast between the opulent plantation mansions and the harsh reality of the slave quarters? Slavery, the dark heart of colonial prosperity. It's impossible to discuss the colonial economy without confronting its darkest aspect: slavery. From the first enslaved Africans arriving in Virginia in 1619, the institution spread throughout the southern colonies and beyond. Enslaved people worked in fields, homes, and workshops, their labor fueling the wealth of the colonies. Resistance, rebellion, and the struggle for freedom were constant undercurrents, shaping colonial society in profound ways. How might your life and conscience be shaped by living in a society built on the suffering of others? Women in colonial society, more than meets the eye. Women in the 13 colonies had few legal rights, and their lives were largely confined to home and family. Yet they managed households, raised children, and in some cases, ran shops or farms. In New England, women like Anne Hutchinson challenged religious authority. In the South, widows sometimes inherited estates and wielded real power. What stories haven't been told? What silent struggles and quiet triumphs shaped the colonial women-SS experience? Native Americans and colonial society. The arrival of British colonists disrupted indigenous societies, leading to alliances, trade, and often violent conflict. Some Native Americans adapted to new economic realities, trading furs and goods, while others resisted encroachment on their lands. Epidemics, war, and displacement devastated Native populations, but their influence remained woven through colonial life. If you were a Native American in 1700, how would you respond to the flood of newcomers and the changing world? Religion, faith, and division. Religion was at the heart of colonial life, from Puritan churches in New England to Anglican chapels in Virginia and Quaker meetings in Pennsylvania. Faith shaped laws, customs, and community spirit. Sometimes, religious fervor led to division. The Great Awakening of the 1730s and 1740s sparked revivalist zeal, challenging old authorities and uniting colonists in new ways. Would you have been swept up in the excitement of a revival meeting or wary of its passion and change? Urban life and the rise of cities. By the mid-1700s, colonial cities like Boston, New York, Philadelphia, and Charleston were thriving hubs of commerce and culture. Newspapers, theaters, coffeehouses, and taverns buzzed with news, gossip, and political debate. These cities became the crucibles of revolutionary ideas, as colonists debated rights, taxes, and the meaning of liberty. Can you imagine the thrill of hearing the latest pamphlet read aloud in a crowded tavern, the first whispers of revolution in the air? Education and enlightenment. Education varied widely across the colonies. In New England, towns were required to support schools. In the South, wealthier families hired private tutors. The spread of Enlightenment ideas encouraged curiosity, scientific inquiry, and debate. Colonial colleges, newspapers, and libraries helped spark an intellectual ferment that would soon challenge British rule. Would you be drawn to the new ideas of liberty and reason, or hold fast to tradition? Colonial economy, a web of trade. Colonial economies didn't exist in isolation. Goods flowed in a vast Atlantic web known as the triangular trade: rum and fish from New England, wheat from the middle colonies, tobacco and rice from the South, slaves and sugar from the Caribbean and Africa. British laws, like the Navigation Acts, sought to control this trade, fueling both prosperity and resentment. What would you risk for a chance at fortune in the bustling, sometimes dangerous world of colonial trade? Class and conflict. Despite opportunity, colonial society was far from equal. Class divisions sharpened as wealth accumulated at the top. Tenant farmers, indentured servants, and enslaved people struggled for a better life, sometimes rebelling against injustice. Bacon's Rebellion, the Stono Rebellion, and other uprisings revealed the tensions simmering beneath the surface. Would you challenge authority or cling to stability in a world of changing fortunes? Toward revolution. By the mid-1700s, the 13 colonies were a dynamic, often divided society, a mix of ambition and tradition, exploitation and hope. Yet beneath the differences, common experiences were forging a new identity. Economic grievances, shared hardships, and the yearning for self-government set the stage for revolution. If you lived in the colonies in 1775, would you stand with the rebels or remain loyal to the crown? Conclusion: legacies of the 13 colonies. The story of the 13 British colonies is one of paradox and possibility. Out of struggle, diversity, and contradiction emerged a society that would challenge an empire and invent a nation. The legacies of their economy and society, prosperity and inequality, freedom and oppression, unity and division, still shape the United States today. What lessons can we draw from the colonies as we face the challenges of our own time?